Good evening, a warm welcome to all of you to the webinar series hosted by Advocates Association Bengaluru. We have with us today Mr. S.P. Shankar, Senior Advocate, High Court of Karnataka. Sir, we are very fortunate to have you with us today. Welcome to the webinar. Now, with immense pleasure, I would like to
My pleasure.
introduce our speaker, Mr. S.P. Shankar. Mr. S.P. Shankar has obtained his post-graduation in contractual laws and second post-graduation in constitutional law. Initially, Mr. Shankar joined the office of late Chief Justice of India, E.S. Venkatramaya, and he was also associated with Justice M.N. Venkatachalaya. He is a designated senior advocate by the Honorable High Court of Karnataka for more than 2 decades now. Mr. Shankar has authored 7 books. All 7 books have gained popularity among us members of the bar. CPC book of Mr. Shankar has now seen the 7th edition, which is no less than a Bible to the advocates fraternity. Sir, on behalf of Advocates Association Bengaluru, I extend a warm welcome to you, sir. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Audibility?
Yes, sir. You are audible, sir.
Yeah, fine. Fine. We'll go. We'll start.
Please, sir. Please.
Good evening and namaskar. Today we are asked to go through the drill in regard to Motor Vehicles Act and in particular compulsory insurance, prospect and purpose. Very interesting and challenging subject in the sense that Motor Vehicles Act has few limitations. One is there are 2 sections of the bar engaged in this motor vehicles cases who lead the advocates who get themselves enrolled, straight walk into the claimants bar and they flourish. The other section of the claims bar is the insurance advocates. They have minimum of 20 years experience in the profession. They are well trained, disciplined, and well oriented in terms of the statute law and the case law. The fight between these 2 sections has been, according to me, unmatched or mismatched. But that's the charm of the profession, and the bar is continuing with this division. Now, on to the subject, we have, I do not know who chose this subject, maybe Mr. Vikram. Thanks to you. You have set out a beautiful subject for discussion this evening. Compulsory insurance of motor vehicles. Then the other aspect is purpose and the prospect. The purpose of compulsory insurance is to be found in a set of situations. Prior to the Motor Vehicles Act being amended, introducing the chapters of third-party claims, it was the lot of the victims of the accident to resort to common law, namely law of torts, and get engaged in unending litigation in one court, the second court, and finality. And by the time the award was recoverable, the parties who had instituted the proceedings may not have been alleged. That was a sad situation. Then came the Constitution. After the advent of the Constitution, we found that directive principles were handy in terms of wiping the tears from the victims of the accidents before any other adverse situation overtook them. The part 4 of the Constitution said that recovery of compensation is not to depend on the vagaries or the financial conditions of the owner of the vehicle, and the concept of compulsory insurance had to be introduced. That Motor Vehicles Act 1939 is a product of Government of India Act 1935, and before the background for that was Road Traffic Act 1934 prevalent in Great Britain. We have virtually the carbon copy of Road Traffic Act is found when Motor Vehicles Act was amended in the year 1956. Chapter 7 was introduced in Motor Vehicles Act 1939, giving the large scope for litigants not to rush to the civil court, but to approach a tribunal specifically constituted for the purpose of determining the compensation. In fact, there's a specific bar in the 1956 Amendment Act saying that jurisdiction of the civil courts is totally barred, and it's only the tribunal constituted for each area, territorial areas, that has got the jurisdiction to award and entertain claim petition. With this, the new concept of tribunalization set in. And this was one of the earliest aspects of tribunalization, with which we are now concerned in, say, plenty. Then 1956 Act and introduced some provisions of law, say 110A to 110F, and it was a self-contained code. There was a bar, as I stated earlier, and there is also another provision, namely the recovery, how to recover the amount was one of the provisions. That provision stated like this: the award is to be executed against the owner, and with the support of the insurance company, the check to be recovered was the situation. As time passed by, the people of India realized that most of the vehicles were either uninsured or unrenewed. The difficulty came in the way of the realization of the amount, and then they said, "Look here, we are getting awards under the Motor Vehicles Tribunal, but there's no way of recovering the money. We have to do something." Then, with effect from 1 to 1970, Section 110F was amended, 110B was amended to say that the amount awarded by the tribunal is to be recovered from, and the award is to be directed against insurer, or owner, or the driver. The situation was that the insurer alone is responsible to satisfy the award under the Motor Vehicles Act. If there was no insurance, the owner, if the owner was also not in a position to pay the money, it was the driver. This was the scenario. Now, the situation is totally different. All of us know that victims of accident and the insurer are strangers. They have never seen each other, and they had never had any to do with each other. Yet, after the award was passed, the award was executable only against the insurer. Look at the funny thing. Insurer is not a party to the contract of insurance. Sorry, the claimant is not a party to the contract of insurance. The legal representatives of the deceased victim of an accident are not parties to the contract of insurance. The situation was that, but yet the award was executable and the money was to be recovered only from the insurance company. A strange situation. In fact, this is where the law steps in. Motor Vehicles Act, even in the absence of a contract, privity of contract between the insurer and the claimants, made the award executable against the insurer. Most of our judges, including judges of the Supreme Court, say that an insurance policy, a motor insurance policy, is an indemnity, and that indemnity is to be enforced by the owner, the insured, the owner of the vehicle, and the driver is at fault. By reason of the fault of the driver, vicarious liability is passed on to the owner of the vehicle, and by reason of indemnity, insurance liable. No, this is wrong. The liability of the insurer under the Motor Vehicles Act is statutory one and not contractual one. We have to understand that the liability of the insurance company, liability of the insurance company does not flow from any contract, but it flows from the statute. Three judges of the Supreme Court, the three judges of the Supreme Court in Swaran Singh in para 66 have stated like this: liability of the insurer under a motor vehicle policy is statutory one and not contractual one. So therefore, we have to now start with the premise that the liability of the insurer is in terms of Motor Vehicles Act, namely the Motor Vehicles Act 1939 as amended in the year 1956. As time passed by, the law had to be changed, and law was consolidated and codified in terms of 1988 Act. Later on, the 88 Act received a few amendments. The material amendments for our purpose are in 2017 and 2019. By 2019, there's a radical change. We'll come to that a little later. We have got to, now I'm building up the situation to this, namely that the reason for this discussion is the compulsion for the vehicles to be insured. That is compulsory insurance. The compulsory insurance comes from this direction. The statute, section 146 mandates that no vehicle can be brought on a public place or on road unless it is insured for the purpose of recovery of compensation it's claimed by third parties. So therefore, the essential feature of Motor Vehicles Act is that no vehicle shall be brought on road unless it is insured for coverage of third party risk. We have to go a little bit later into the aspect of third party. Before that, I will now narrate to you what was the law obtaining in England. Road Traffic Act 1934, Road Traffic Act 1972, Road Traffic Act 98 consistently maintained that the policy of insurance has to be one that covers the insured first, the property of the policy, namely the vehicle, and in addition to it, third party claim is to be reviewed. Look at how we have made a change in our Indian law. The law in England, as I stated earlier, would say that insured is the first to be covered, and commercial insurance policy is a commercial document. It has to be interpreted in the manner the statute demands. The House of Lords, consisting of 5 judges, decided in Digby, D-I-G-B-Y, in 1943 appeal cases, page 121, saying that majority decision is 3:2, that the owner of the vehicle, who is at the wheels or who is an occupant of the car, is the first to be covered, and his claim is to be honored by the tribunal, and insurance must be satisfied. As I stated earlier, that decision is by the House of Lords, interpreting the provisions of the 1934 Act of the English Road Traffic Act, and it stated that the insured is the first person to be covered. As I stated, it is a division in the decision, namely 3:2. In Black's Law Dictionary, you find the term third party is defined by following the minority view, saying that any person other than the insured and the insurer is a third party. Black's dictionary made a mistake of following the minority decision to say that to define the term third party. The first Fox pass is in this direction, in this manner. Law Dictionary still maintains that third party is a person other than the insured and the insurer. I'm sorry, this is not the intention of law, this is not the provision of law, and at all events, this is not the interpretation laid down by the House of Lords in one decision, interpreting the provisions of Road Traffic Act 1934. As I stated earlier, we have borrowed word by word, punctuation by punctuation, the provisions of Road Traffic Act 1934, then in 72, then in 88. If that is so, how can we now deviate and say this? This is only because of the interpretation given by our courts in India. England maintains that insurance is the first person to be covered. We have now seen that law is that owner is the first to be covered. Declaration of law rendered interpreting the provisions of the Road 1934 is that the insured is the first person to be covered in the policy. We have this scenario, but we have got to see how this law has changed. Now, please see the purpose of as I stated, 1934 was improved and adopted in India in the year 1956, and the main purpose was to give the protection to the third parties in terms of Article 38 of the Constitution of India set out in Part 4 of the Constitution. Well, we have to see how the cause of action arises in a motor accident case. Kindly look at the provisions of the Motor Vehicles Act. Section 165 and 166 are the relevant provisions which will deal with constitution of the tribunal and the claim cases. I will now read to the learned audience the provisions of section 165. After setting out so many things in section 165 class 1, this is what is stated. for the purpose of adjudicating upon the claims for compensation in respect of accidents involving the death of or bodily injury to. Now, this is important. Persons arising out of the use of the motor vehicle. They link or the sustaining factual situation for laying foundation for a claim petition is the accident must arise out of the use of the vehicle. The resultant accident must have injured or killed a person. The constitution of the tribunal is set out in section 165 of the Motor Vehicles Act. Motor Vehicles Act, now it's essential to read this section wholly. A state government may, by notification in the official gazette, constitute one or more motor accidents claim tribunals hereinafter to the claims tribunal for such area as may be specified in the notification for the purpose of adjudicating upon claims for compensation in respect of accidents involving the death of or bodily injury to persons arising out of the use of the motor vehicle. The word used in the statute is bodily death of or bodily injury to persons arising out of the use vehicle. Now, the law does not say only third parties. The first point to be well laid as an essential premise is that statute does not say that the owner is excluded or third parties alone are claimed. Law says claims of persons arising out of the use of the vehicle may maintain a claim for compensation or damages to the property cost. So when the statute says that all persons, we are interpreting saying that first your insured is not covered and insurance is not liable. Why? The insurance company takes the defense that he is a party to the contract, he cannot have benefit and relief. I don't know where from they get it. My knowledge of contract law and knowledge of the statute law says that if the statute says in a particular manner that all persons are covered literally. Kindly look at the explanation of appended to section 165. For the removal of doubt, it is hereby declared that the expression claims for compensation in respect of accidents involving the death of or bodily injury to persons arising in motor vehicles use includes claim for compensation under section 164. So this section specifically authorizes that any person who is entitled to compensation either under the main provision 166 or in section 166 has to be a person who has come in contact with the vehicle when the vehicle is in motion or when the vehicle is in use. So the essential term is use of the vehicle, and the accident must arising out of the use of the vehicle. These are the two ingredients, and we are bending backwards and turning all inorganic things to a motion to say that, well, the insurance company is not liable to pay compensation to owner of the vehicle. And it has to be only a third party. Third party means other than the insurer and the insured. All this is not necessary. Kindly see then section 166. 166 says an application for compensation arising out of an accident of the nature specified in subsection 1 of section 65. That is persons coming in contact with the vehicle when the vehicle is in use. By the person who has sustained injury, by the owner of the property, or where death has resulted in the accident, by all or any of the legal representatives of the deceased. Owner is not excluded, either in 165 or in 166. Yet, we say so many things about this. We'll have to kindly see the other provisions of the Motor Vehicles Act itself, which would support my submission to the exalted audience whom I am facing now. That is, we will have to see whether the provisions of earlier provisions of 158 clause 6 and present provision of section 159 as well as section 166 clause 4 are of any assistance. Kindly see what 159 says. 159 would say that a police officer shall, during the investigation, prepare an accident information report. It's called as AIR, Accident Information Report, to facilitate the settlement of claim in such form and manner within 3 months and obtaining such particulars and submit the same to the claims tribunal and such as may be prescribed. Statute makes it an obligation on the part of the police authorities to register the accident in its accident report, information report, then forward a copy of the report to the jurisdictional tribunal. And section 166 class 4 says, now you kindly see section 166 class 4. Now it is class 5, it was earlier class 4. Notwithstanding anything in this act, any other law for the time being in force, the right of a person to claim compensation for injury is in an accident shall, upon the death of the person injured, survive to his legal representative, irrespective of whether the cause of death is relatable to or had any access with the injury or not. Now, this also would say that kindly look at section 166 class 2. Every application to section 1 shall be made at the option of the claimant, either to the claims tribunal having jurisdiction over the area in the accident, or to the claims tribunal within the local limits of whose jurisdiction the claimant resides or carries service, and shall be as follows. Now, if an accident report submitted to the police officer, that itself is a claim petition. That is so, kindly see the efficacy of section 166 class 3. We'll have to go back to 1939 Act, 1956 Amendment, then come again to 1988, and then see. Earlier, the original law was 6 months' time was provided for filing the claim petition. When 88 Amendment was introduced and law was changed very significantly, statute said that the time limitation provided for filing a claim petition is removed. That means within a reasonable time, any claim petition could have been filed. That situation continued from 1988 till in 1919, namely 1/9/2019. What happened on 1/9/2019? On 1/9/2019, section 166 clause 3 says, no application for compensation shall be entertained unless it's made in 6 months. Look at the anomaly. And one time, on one hand, we say that if a report is submitted to the police station, and if the police officer makes a report to the claims tribunal, that itself is a claim petition, it is to be heard and disposed of, and without any further inquiry and on the basis of the evidence available. Section 166 clause 3 says that no claim petition can be filed beyond 6 months. This anomaly is causing worry to the claimant's advocates and is keeping the advocate bar happy. We'll have to see whether the intention of the legislature, intention of the parliament is to deprive the claimants of the claim itself by reason of the fact that within 6 months claim petition is filed. Far from it. Tribunal is constituted as a means to help the victims of accidents through the compulsory insurance. Now we'll have to go to the compulsory insurance section 146. What is compulsory insurance? As I stated earlier, no vehicle shall be brought on road unless it is insured for covering the risk arising out of the use of the vehicle. How do you reconcile compulsory insurance? No vehicle can be brought on record, and the insurance company is liable to satisfy the claim if a claim petition is put through the police authorities and it's lodged with the claim tribunal. And 166(3) to say that if the claim petition is not filed within a period of 6 months, claim petition is barred by and lapses. This is a laughable anomaly and requires to be attended to by advocates. In fact, actually, this aspect was highlighted. We have, as my original basic statement was, we have two bars. Insurance bar on one hand, which is strong and well cultured in the sense they are aware of the provisions of law, they are trained and trying to defeat the claim is my view. That's the matter. We are not to mix my personal view here. The other is the claimant's bar. Throughout India, there is one procedure followed for filing a claim petition. A clerk in lawyer's office, on hearing the news or on reading the news item in a newspaper about an accident, makes it a point to go to that police station or to the area where he gets information and secure documents of motor vehicle accident. That clerk brings it back and gives it to his advocate, and that advocate passes it on to his stenographer, the typist, and everything is in a prescribed form. No effort is required to decipher anything in the form, and the form is typed by a stenographer. The claimant signs it and your clerk presents it to the authority, and the authority directs issue of notice. After the issue of notice, the insurer alone comes and contests the case. The insured never appears before the court. The driver never appears before the court. The scenario is now changed between the less informed insurance claimant advocate and the better informed insurance advocate. Insurance advocate will file the written statement longer than your pleading of claim petition, and they takes all contentions, whether permissible or not, and ultimately the valuation is on the learned member of the tribunal. He gives 1 or 2 hearings and then frames issues, posts it for document, posts it for trial. Nobody comes. The claimant sees either the legal representatives of a deceased victim of an accident or an injured. He comes on clutches, but there is nobody to attend to him. The claimant's advocate is not normally present, and the proxy advocate asks for a passover. Once it is passed over, second time is passed over, and the third time the member of the tribunal refuses adjournment and pushes the witness to the box. And believe me, what happens in motor accident cases is that the judge puts the question to the witness, gets the answers, and records the evidence. Cross-examination is done by the insurance company. Then the case is posted for the insurance advocate's evidence, and the insurance advocate invariably does not lead any evidence. The matter is posted. The claimant's advocate comes only when the check is deposited. It's a sad thing. I didn't want to say all these things in the beginning. The scenario is that this has become a means for our young advocates to pass out from the college to for the claims bar and present these cases. The insurance is very, very informed advocates, and they know how to puncture the balloons, namely the hope of the claimants. So we're back to the subject. We will have, so now 163 says 6 months limitation. There are 2 other provisions of the statute say that a claim petition, the accident information report itself is the claim petition, and the tribunal is authorized to pass the award in terms of that claim. Where do we go? So the compulsory insurance assumes relevance and importance now. If there was no insurance at all, it would have been rather difficult. Look at the other aspect, whether the insurance is there or not. Now this the situation is the vehicle is insured and the vehicle meets with an accident, the claim case is filed, and how to proceed with the claim is the next aspect. Now, this deals with compulsory insurance, namely the statute recognizes the fact that there is no privity of contract between the claimants and the owner of the vehicle or the insurer, and the statutory liability is there and not contractual indemnity. As I stated earlier, section paragraph 66 of the three-bench decision in Swaran Singh positively records in one sentence paragraph say that the liability under the Motor Vehicles Act of the insurer to satisfy the claim is a statutory liability. This is reiterated subsequently. First decision to lay emphatically that it's a statutory liability was Swaran Singh, and subsequently number of decisions have held that it's a statutory liability and not an indemnity in terms of the contract, law of contracts. Now, if we will have now to see that statutory liability is sought to be enforced in this manner, and this is only because of the compulsory insurance. In lighter vein, I will state like this: remove this compulsory insurance, the insurance companies will be out of business, because we Indians take every privilege, every concession given with a commitment and a feeling of sensation, feeling of happiness. That no insurance, we don't have to pay the premium. Forget that if a vehicle meets with an accident, the liability of to pay the compensation nowadays is huge compensation, is of the owner of the vehicle. Back to this, compulsory insurance is only the succor for the claimants. It's an implementation of the directive principles that compulsory insurance is addressed. It is not for filling the coffers of the insurance company. I repeat that compulsory insurance is not introduced for the benefit of the insurance companies. It is introduced for the purpose of securing benefit to the claimants, the unfortunate victims of a motor accident, be it the victims of the legal representatives of the victims of the accident or the injured victim himself. If a person suffers injury, the prolonging agony, the treatment, the other aspects compels one to say that if the man had been killed, it would have been better. We would have got it at formula in Bandari's case or Thomas' case. We would have obtained a formula and solved the problem of payment of compensation. In the case of injury, it's totally different. the pain and suffering the one goes through, or with this want of sensation, who suffers and allows the members of the family to suffer, is huge, too huge to be compensated. We have a situation now that compensation awarded in injury cases is far higher than the compensation awarded in death cases. That's why most of the insurance advocates, when the local adalats are held, death cases are taken up on priority and compensations are dispersed. Now we'll have to see this scheme is compulsory insurance is introduced as a statutory relief and not out of a bargain between the insured and the insurance company. The beneficiaries are the victims of the accident. Kindly now change the scenario. What is the purpose? I have explained. What is compulsory insurance, the motto behind it, and how it's implemented. Perhaps now, with the other 25 minutes left, we can deal with the prospect of this compulsory insurance. The prospect is this. A claimant is assured of the compensation. How? Why? The fact that an accident occurred is not only evidenced by the victims of the accident, but by an outside agency, namely the police. Police authorities make a record of the fact that an accident occurred on such and such a place, such and such a time, within the jurisdiction of that position or this police station. A record is built up. Mahazar is drawn. Vehicle is seized. Driving license and other documents are secured. Insurance document coverage is secured. So this part of preparation for the case, namely holding Mahazar, spot Mahazar, then sketch, then this statements of the person who gives the first information, and all these forms the basis for accident information report. Then, after the culpability or otherwise of the person at the wheel is determined, the next aspect is what is the man was an earning member. That is the matter for evidence to be claimed to relief. The next aspect is injury cases. The police authorities take him to a recognized medical practitioner, maybe a government hospital, and gets the report in regard to the extent of injuries and nature of injuries. With that information on record, the accident information letter again is consolidated and corroborated by the medical certificate to say that this is the extent of injury. Now the next question is whether post-mortem is necessary. Now Supreme Court has held post-mortem is not necessary. If an accident, the information report is available, and if accident has occurred in the manner described in the police report, that's sufficient. Post-mortem is not necessary. Now we take that into consideration. The next step is how do we proceed further? 158.6, which is now become 159, and 166.4, which has become 162, enable the claimants to infer that intimation sent to the jurisdiction magistrate is itself a claim petition and compensation can be awarded. On the other hand, if a claim petition is involved within 6 months under section 166, then it becomes a direct claim in terms of rules of the state, rules found by the state, and that information is available to the tribunal. Who are the members of the tribunal? Person who is a civil judge, or a person who is eligible to be promoted as a civil judge, or a district judge, and even a high court judge. What the law says, but so far no high court judge has been a member of the tribunal, and so it's only the state judiciary which is functioning as tribunal. Now this aspect takes us to the next the area where we'll have to think twice before we embark upon. One is, what are the defenses available to an insurer? The defenses are statutorily enumerated. No defense other than what is enumerated in statute is to be taken by the insurer is the mandate of law. I'll be reading both the sections. Law says these are the defenses. Law further says apart from that defense, you have no other defense. Look how the law is, though it is borrowed from in law, the Road Traffic Act in England, we have made it sufficiently a code by itself to serve the intended purpose. The law says enumerated defense under section 149 old, now it is section 150, class 2. These are the defenses available, A, B, C, D. And we also say in class 5 of the same section, I'll be reading it presently, that apart from what is given as a defense in the 149(2), you shall not take any other defense. So the law is so tight, law is so guarded, law is so helpful to the claimants. Only thing is, there must be the eager advocates to make use of this law and give compensation to the victims. And I think none of us can have control over it. We'll have only to see what next is to be done. See now, what is the statutory defense? Please permit me to read section 150, which corresponds to old section 149. The first part of section 150 has a parenthetical clause, which I should read and convey my the part which is concerned a lot of concern to me. It in the middle of section 150, this is what appears. Notwithstanding that the insurer may be entitled to avoid or cancel, or may have avoided or cancelled the policy, the insurer shall, subject to the provisions of this section. I'll read it again. Notwithstanding that the insurer may be entitled to avoid or cancel, or may have avoided or cancelled the policy, the insurer shall, subject to the provisions of this section, pay to the person entitled to the benefit of the award, not the award. See, the award statute uses the word benefit of the award. Any sum not exceeding some assured payable thereunder. Assured thereunder means what is mentioned in the award. Together with any amount payable in respect of cost, any sum in respect of interest. The statute says, notwithstanding that the insurer can avoid or has avoided, notwithstanding that the insurer can cancel or has cancelled the policy of insurance, the sum awarded by the tribunal shall be paid by the payner with cost and interest. What else you? Such a secured provision of law. So what? And it says, forget that the policies were cancelled. Forget that the policy is awarded in the manner of law. Yet you pay the amount because you have issued the policy. Now, when we see the earlier section 1.5 and present section 1.4, it says, where a certificate of insurance has been issued under section 3 of section 1.7 to the person by whom policy has been effected, so much of the policy has purpose to restrict the insurance company of the person insured thereby, by reference to any condition other than those in class 2, shall, as respects such liabilities as are enumerated to be covered by a policy other than class B. So, the law in section 140, 150 class 4 is that you cannot avoid liability except on the ground enumerated in class B of section 147. Now you have to see class B of section 147, that the policy is obtained by fraud. 147, class 1B, it says, the insured person, classes of persons specified in class C to extent specified in 147, class 1B. 149 class 1B, not 147, 147, class 1B. It rejects such part on the date of hearing filed by the client tribunal to the adjudicator that claim. So the policy can never be cancelled. This is what law says, and now we'll have to go back to the terms of the policy. The situation is this: policy once issued cannot be cancelled during its currency till the last period is over. Even if the insured dies, the liability of the insurer is not absolved. The common law of contract is, if the principal dies, the liability of the insurer also goes. That is not the position of law. Section 306 of the Indian Succession Act says that death of a person brings about cessation of all liabilities. That's again, the law says, notwithstanding anything contained in section 306 of the Indian Succession Act, liability of the insurer continues to be liable, notwithstanding that the insured dies. So much of protection is given to the insurance company, so much of, the claimant, so much of immunity is provided to the claimant, yet the claimant bar is still suffering. Now, kindly see who is the third party? I think I'll have to come back to the definition of section third party in section 145. 145 class I, which was earlier class G, now it is class I, says third party includes the government, the driver, and any other co-worker in a transport vehicle. I think I have to start from the beginning now. Indian courts have interpreted the policy of insurance to say that the owner is not covered because he's a party to the contract and he's not a third party. He has obtained a policy of insurance, he has secured a policy of insurance, and therefore he is a party to the insurance contract also. All of us have seen motor vehicle policies. I have obtained recently. I have read it carefully. I am not a party to the contract. The policy says, for the purpose of meeting the requirements of Motor Vehicles Act, this policy is issued by the authorized insurer covering the following risks. There is no second party, there is no third party in the policy of insurance. When all of us go home today, we'll look back into the policy, look at it very, very closely. All that the insurance policy says is that this policy is issued for the valuable consideration of the premium paid by the owner of the vehicle, assuring that all risks contained in it are taken over by the insurer. There is no privity of contract even between the owner and the insurer. It's a statutory policy. The liability is statutory liability. This aspect is forgotten, and we'll always regret when we hear somebody saying that. All right. Now we have seen the definition. It includes the driver or any other co-worker in the transport vehicle. Third party includes the driver. According to me, the driver is the author of the accident. According to me, a person who commits an offense under the Motor Vehicles Act, who commits an accident, is not to be benefited because the owner is not benefited. Now, the owner who pays premium, owner who is not a party to the insurance policy, is stated to be not a third party and he is not given the compensation. And all courts, including Supreme Court, say that parties other than the insurer and insurer alone are the third parties. Law is to the contrary. Interpretation is to the contrary. Only contrary. So we have got to write, the bar has to do something about it. And with the earlier definition of third party was, and 145 class G, third party means and includes the government. That was the definition. Today, the position is little what? The reason is this. Look at Road Traffic Act 1934. Look at Road Traffic Act 1972. Look at the second version of these two, namely Road Traffic Act 1988. All these three statutes say that third party includes REX. In Latin, Rex means king. The emperor is included as the third party. The reason is all the properties are owned by the emperor, the king, and any damage caused to the property of the king, the government is a third party. Any claim, government is a third party. That was the situation. See, now we are blindly following that definition in the three enactments of the British Kingdom, and we are copying it. Now we have added one more thing. The author of the accident, the person who causes the accident, the driver is also a third party. Where do we go? Earlier we were better by saying that the claim petition could have been filed within a period of 3 years. Now the period is reduced to 6 months, and no provision for application of earlier the law was provided that if an application is filed for condonation of delay, the tribunal on show of sufficient cause may condone the delay. That situation is also not obtaining. This is extremely harmful from the point of view of this claim cases. Now we'll have to the prospect of the compulsory insurance is thin and gloomy. The purpose of compulsory insurance was very bright and very encouraging because the intention of law was wipe out the tear before the first drop of tear falls. Are we doing it? Now we have created so many, say, the blockades, so many stumble blocks for the claimant to succeed. First, he has to file within 6 months. A man is injured. He becomes unconscious. He's in coma. All of us will remember. In my student days, there was one Mr. Raju was a politician from Andhra Pradesh. He met with an accident. He met with an accident even before Nehru died. And 17 years later, I don't know how, what a miracle it was, he came back. He regained conscious, and the youngster was there, the now elderly person was there in the frame of Raju. And Raju, is Nehru dead? He did not know the death of Nehru. That was his state of condition. Now, if the similar situation, his claim becomes bar because 6 months is the embargo. Is that the intention of law? Never. In fact, if limitation is given, there should be scope for continuation of delay. Except in original suits, continuation of delay is always the enabling provision. Of course, in this endemic season, even original suits, the 138 provisions are condoned. This original suits are everything. And all of you will know that Consumer Protection Act, if you go to the Consumer Protection, Section 3 says that it is enabling provision. It is in addition to and not in derogation of the civil right to file a suit. If you fail in one for second forum, third person, so Supreme Court will say the time spent in the consumer fora is to be excluded from the time prescribed for limitation for filing the suit, and the limitation is to be. Many suits in the Bangalore hospital have succeeded in filing suits after failing in National Commission and in Supreme Court. So the situation is everywhere there is scope for continuation of delay, except in Section 163. What should happen to persons who are not in a physically a child? The law of limitation says the law of limitation does not run against a minor. Law does not run against a disabled person. Does not run against a lunatic, a mentally retarded. All these provisions are not taken care of. We are now in a situation where, in some, while claim petition within 6 months or lose your right. This is not in Mohammed bin Tughlaq's time to say that file the claim petition or get lost. No, we have a right and we have got to do it. This, the learned members of the bar have to agitate this matter and get back that right for continuation delay. And incidentally, it's Karnataka High Court struck down. We argued the matter. There was a team of advocates, including me, with the arguments to say that this is not in Congress with the rest of the provisions of the Motor Vehicle Act. Strike it down. In Lacha's case, it was struck down, and Ramajoyce and Ramakrishna with the honorable judges confirmed the Supreme Court also. So the whole thing boils down to this: compulsory insurance is a statutory requirement. Statutory liability is a resultant consequence. If compulsory insurance and statutory liability are in one forum, the purpose is met. The provisions of Part 4 of the Constitution, namely directive principles, are met. So the compulsory insurance of motor vehicles succeeds in its achieving the purpose. The prospect of its application is lingering. It is this area I should thank Mr. Vikram and Mr. Bhagwan and Mr. Bharadwaj that they have provided this thinking process to the bar. An opportunity is given to me to explain the need for compulsory insurance, its purpose, and the prospect of that is that we are in a real pell-mell situation. We are not at all happy with the situation that the original act was far better, and the amendment passed in the year 2019 requires to be revisited. The Parliament must revisit these provisions and come back to it. And so now with a few minutes left, I think I should cover some of the aspects of case law on award of compensation. I have dealt with this provision of Section 1P to say that defenses are enumerated. Notwithstanding the enumerated defenses 1, 2, and 3, notwithstanding the provision which enables the insurer to avoid except on the ground of Class B, namely it's obtained by fraud and misrepresentation, the insurance companies file defenses left, right, and center, denying the gender of the claimant, age of the claimant, address of the claimant, and occupation of the claimant. The situation is many times the tribunal raises an issue whether the claimants are legal representatives of the deceased, whether the claimant is the widow of the deceased. What kind of situation we have achieved? In a country where Harishchandra was born, we are now finding ourselves in a situation that whatever we tell and we find out what statement made by the claimant is disputed bench. That is not enumerated defense. Enumerated defense is that there is violation. Again, in regard to this violation of the permit or the license, a funny thing happens always. An insurer takes this defense. The vehicle is meant to be a transport vehicle, meant to carry passengers, meant to carry goods, and it had a permit. The permit was not enforced on the date of the accident. Thousands of cases have been lost. Claimants have lost cases only on the ground that on the date of the accident, the permit was not enforced. And one of the cases was one Mr. Rajshekhar, and he was finding it difficult to argue. And the honorable judges asked me, Ms. Shankar, can you help? I was invited to be an amicus curiae, and I told the judges, I'll certainly help, there's no difficulty. Then I said, what's the fact? No, the insurance company has taken the defense that on the date of the accident, the vehicle did not have the permit to carry passengers, and therefore the insurance is not liable. I said, well, let's read the provision of law. The provision of law says this: on the date of the contract of insurance, on the date of proposal seeking insurance, on the date premium is paid, on the date when the insurance company issues the policy, the vehicle must have a permit, not on the date of the accident. How a defense not enumerated in the statute is abuse and misuse, and a just claim is defeated is an illustration. I use the very same words. How a defense not permitted to be raised is raised. How a defense not authorized in law is pressed into service. How the courts have exonerated on the ground that the permit was not there on the date of the accident. Look at the provision of law. Provision of law says that on the date of the contract of insurance, the permit must be there. Thousands of cases are lost. And the judges thanked me and remanded the matter to take this as a first issue, whether on the date of the accident there was permit or not. I told the court that there is no need to remand, here is the permit. It was there. And the permit had expired 7 days before the accident, and he had filed an application on the next day of the permit. And under Section 84 of the Motor Vehicles Act, the permit, if it is renewed, it relates back to the date of application, namely before the accident. Will you do it? One disposal law will have this time to have a second innings. Nobody knows the pains of a claimant advocate or a claimant. This is the situation. I cited this only to show that enumerated defenses are not taken. Now, if this is a person, the next thing is we'll have to see on quantification. No, before I go to quantification, the natural defense taken is the offending vehicle. I don't know why they use that word. Offending vehicle was driven by an unauthorized person. He was not the paid employee of the insured. First, not enumerated. The driver did not have a valid license for the vehicle, namely with reference to the vehicle. There are categories of vehicle driving license, and with reference to that vehicle which is insured, there is no license. Even if the license was issued, it was not valid on that date. It had expired. And lastly, they take the contention that it is fake license. On account of this defense of fake license, thousands of cases are lost in Karnataka, lakhs of cases are lost throughout India. And this necessitated recently, the year 2019, to constitute a larger bench of 3 judges to decide whether fake license is a valid defense and whether fake license can absolve the company. The law is laid down very emphatically as never before that the duty of the owner of the vehicle is to ask for copy of the license, see for himself whether it is according to him genuine, give a trial to the driver, the prospective employee, sit with the vehicle or without send somebody, ask him to drive around, have a feel of the driving, and be satisfied whether he drives or not. If you have done this, much, namely, seen the license, copy of the license, sat with the driver, allowed him to drive, and satisfied that he's a good driver, your liability of the insurance company is not absolved, and the insurance company continues to be liable. Supreme Court had occasion to examine this recently, as I stated earlier, and they one chutka sentence they have added saying that this defense at the worst is a fake defense. Kindly see, this defense at the worst is a fake defense. This reminds me of one particular incident in Karnataka High Court. Mr. Chinnappa, the father of Jan Chinnappa, our senior advocate, was the judge in charge of motor vehicles cases. He had the reputation of disposing of number of cases a day. And there was somebody who had raised an issue that there was a trace of alcohol in the driver. The driver had, use the word again, trace of alcohol. Let's say when he breathed, it was possible to infer that he had consumed liquor. Therefore, we are not liable. The tribunal said, pay the compensation, and if you have got any grievance against the insurance, to file it against him. The tribunal award was called in question by the insurance companies, and the insurance advocate started arguing. It was Monday, argued whole of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. His matter reached on Friday. The judge was sick and tired of hearing the same arguments, and in insurance law, there is a lot of unity, apparent unity. I will give an analogy. An electric wires are drawn, and an unfortunate crow comes across these twin wires, live and the non-live wire, and it snaps, electricity runs through the body, the crow falls dead. One crow falls, hundreds of crows come around and caw the near high distance and shout for help. And unless that crow fight for its life and goes away, they continue to cry with their heart out. That is comparable to the insurance advocates. One advocate had the brief. One advocate was carrying, it had multiplied into 10 advocates, and the 10 advocates were teasing Justice Chinnappa with the argument saying that drunken driving is a defense available to us. And as I stated earlier, I was part of the amicus curiae. And I told the Honorable Judge, you want to answer in one sentence or you want me to explain it? I'm tired of listening to this argument for the last 1 week. Give me any answer, I will be, sir. I said, please treat this defense as a drunken defense. I told the Honorable Judge that treat this defense of the insurer as a drunken defense and reject it. And he did it. That was the end of it. So I'm only trying to say that what is not permitted under 149(2), what is not permitted in present 152 is taken as a defense, and time of everybody is wasted. So this is how the matter has ended. Now I think I should compensation. The latest decision in that Magnum General Insurance Company is worthy of notice. Child. In fact, I remember there was a Kolar district judge. He had awarded 750 rupees for death of a child. And the agonizing story did not stop there. The advocate had come. And it was Pramila Madam who argued this matter. Justice M.N. Untachala was the judge. Justice Swami was the complainant judge. And when the case was taken up, Justice Venkatachala said, Ms. Shankar, we want you to assist. Tell this. What is it? I asked, ascertained the facts, and the judge said 1,500 rupees is awarded as compensation to death of this child. What do you say? I said the court under Article 41 Rule 33 has power and jurisdiction to reassess the evidence and give. And while doing so, please pass strictures against the judge who has ignored the value of human life and who has condemned and criticized the value of human life. This to a parent who has lost the only son, 1,500 is not a compensation to be well. And strict strictures are passed, and the judge did not live long thereafter. Perhaps the curse of all of us visited him, and he went no more. So now, in sum, this forum is created for delivering the goods, not for holding back. I think we should now allow the intimidating audience to put questions to me. I welcome questions.
Sir, we are overwhelmed and I am running short of words listening to your tireless lecture. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you very much for a very educative session. Now, can we move on to the Q&A session, sir?
It is, we have, I think I advocate say, now I said Susama Thomas, 1993 Supreme Court is the first decision rendered by the Supreme Court evolving the formula for award of compensation. That was based on Bandari's case. 1985 Karnataka 2337 is H.T. Bandari versus Muniamma. This decision was rendered by Honorable Justice M.N. Untachala, as he then was in Karnataka High Court. He innovated a new ground and evolved a law that is holding the field today. Look at that. Susama Thomas is also rendered by Justice Venkatachala, but the great man he did not say that I had taken this view in Karnataka High Court. He said, I'm writing new law because you are assisting me. And he wrote the new law. In the decision was same, approaches were different. This H.C. Bhandari and Susama Thomas will hold the page in regard to award of compensation for this the death of breadwinner. Now, then we have the other decision to say there must be provision for escalation of the income. Fictionally, you add some amount to the salary of the person and arrive at a sum which is likely to that future prospects. That's a beautiful decision. That's there. And I think I have complained him and I'll make it available to the bar. And that contains all the decisions. The best decision as far as a child is concerned, because I had to go to Nagapa's decision, I said Magnum General Insurance Company. That's in 2018. In the Magnum operation, Magnum General Insurance Company. See, they think these are at the moment sufficient. You don't have to, because the advocates for the insurance companies may get a little wild because I'm supplying the decision. We think we'll not run the risk of exceeding the brief. My purpose was to narrate to my friends here in Karnataka or Bangalore that compulsory insurance is the core of the Motor Vehicles Act as amended in 1956 and which is holding the field now. And the purpose is to reach out to the victims of the accident and to see that whether the purpose is achieved. So I can only say that the contribution of the learned advocates of Bangalore in the development of law is enormous. Bhandari case is Karnataka, Susama Thomas is from Kerala, and all the decisions are from Karnataka, which have gone to the Supreme Court, where the quantum is separated. And thank you very much. I enjoyed being with the friends here. And I understand that there's an intimidating audience there around who are trying to put questions, but the time is at our disposal is too short. Thank you. May I close now?
Please, sir. Once again, sir, we are really blessed to have you with us today. On behalf of Advocates Association Bengaluru, sir, I extend my heartfelt gratitude for today's presentation. Thank you so much, sir.
Right. Namaskar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Shankar, sir. We are indebted to you, sir. The best.
Thank you.
Thank you.